And welcome. Yes, he introduced Carl and then Kim walked out. And Michele at the end, Kim, Sherry, George, and John, thank you. Chatting with you individually, we have wisdom on the stage. I'm reading your minds. You want answers that your chief financial officer will accept, right? When I'm wearing the hat, I'm playing the role of chief financial officer, and I don't trust numbers, right? But I'm Carl Ulrichs, and I'm honored to be here. I would love to start down at the end with Michele, and if we could come this way with a brief introduction.
My name's Michele Miller, and I'm with Ideal Industries. It's headquartered in Sycamore, Illinois, so if you're familiar with where Northern Illinois University is, that's where the office is. Luckily, I work from my office a lot, remote. I'm really excited to talk to you. I've been with the organization for about 3 years. We manufacture equipment that our electricians use, as well as solutions supporting green energy. And I'm here to talk with you about fairness as it relates to benefits. Kim?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Nero, and I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief HR Officer at GATX. GATX is a premier leasing company, rail leasing, that operates globally. We're around over 125 years now, and we're headquartered right here in Chicago, Illinois. And I'm excited to talk about mental health and mental health benefits.
My name is Sherry Nelson, and I work with TransUnion. We are located in Chicago. You probably know us more as a credit bureau, but we also offer all sorts of financial services as well. We have about 14,000 associates in over 30 countries. And I am here also to talk about wellness to some degree and just some efficiencies in the benefits arena.
Hi, I'm George Sperling, the CEO of Budgie Health. We're a technology platform based out of New York, and we sell into benefit leaders, and we help employees make better benefit decisions by connecting to their own claims data and using that to power predictive analytics around how they can best utilize those benefits.
I'm John Lowe. I support the HR program and CPO at Daily Pay. We're a financial wellness platform that allows for a suite of HCM products as well as CFS, or consumer financial services. We plug in with a number of very large organizations and try to solution for some of those challenges of frontline daily workers. I'm just excited to be here. The last time I was on a stage like this was like a piano recital when I was 12.
And we're glad you're here too.
How'd it go?
No, it was hopefully better than today.
Awesome. A few hours ago, on this stage, in another panel, John Pletz moderated talking about the generations, specifically Gen X. You started with the word fairness. And maybe something we can start as a theme is, what can we be doing to get fairness for different levels of employees? Because talking with you, it's clear that one size fits one now.
I absolutely agree. Within our organization, let me just start. Ideal is family owned, so privately held, and we also have a non-union workforce, so that gives us a certain degree of flexibility that some of you may not have. But within our organization, when I joined back in 2022, the prior strategy had been to acquire a lot of different businesses, and so we had this dog's breakfast of different offerings. So it was time to simplify, and when I led the simplification effort, it was around the need to make sure that we had fairness for our hourly employees. So I can sit before you today and say that when it comes to retirement, health, or any of our programs with the exception of disability, so particularly paid time off, we worked very hard. Our hourly associates have exactly the same benefits as our salaried. So if you were to join Ideal today as an hourly associate, you start out with 15 days of vacation, plus 5 sick days, plus 2 volunteer days. So you start out with 22 days, and we think that that's really important around the things we're talking about, of the wellness that you need to be able to have your passion projects, support your family, take care of yourself. And I don't know if you have a CFO question, but fundamentally, as we've made this switch, our CFO and many people were like, people are gonna abuse this, and there were all kinds of wild predictions of how this was gonna create inefficiencies, and it just hasn't. So even on the salaried side, I don't have to have a lot of different offerings and special meal deals. When somebody asks for additional vacation, we say we have one offering. And so people appreciate that no one's family is more or lesser, and that's been so powerful.
Thanks, Michele. Actually, this would be helpful for the panel. Quick show of hands. How many of us have basically one plan for everyone, as she describes? Look at that. I'm impressed. Okay.
And the one thing I would add to that is that TransUnion, one of the things that people often talk about is your disability, and we have the same plan for everybody, and we actually offer 100% of pay for 26 weeks, and everyone's like, oh my God, because we want to make sure we support our employees where they're at, and we monitor it, and there's literally there's no abuse. And so I would highly recommend, because the people that exceed, and when you start doing your reduction, those are the people that are going through cancer treatments and doing different, really challenging and difficult, and that's when you're going to reduce their pay. So at TransUnion, our benefits are fair across the board, doesn't matter what position you're in, but the disability piece I would just say is a call out, because we do distinguish ourselves that way, and that we try to meet our associates where they're at by our benefit programs.
Ooh, I'm going to steal that. I didn't see the abuse.
Right, we do not see the abuse.
And George, in the work you do on data analytics, is that playing into this at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think what comes around a lot is that everybody needs to be able to show the ROI of the different programs or decisions that they make. And that is woefully lacking in so many different programs. So our entire hypothesis...
We like ROI.
We like ROI. Yeah. So our entire hypothesis was, you know what, if you're paying for these programs, there's a conversation you need to have with your employees, which is, look, we're all in this together. These costs, whatever they're going to be, we're sharing them, and we need to work together to figure out how overall we get those costs down. And there's a trade-off there, which is, you make sure that your data is available and you can tell that story back to your finance team.
Kim, we were talking earlier, and you noted that there's not a light that comes on that says, because of the wellness plan we did, we didn't have this big claim. It's I think someone said, and I thought it was you, that you can't measure something that doesn't happen. And many times we're looking for an outcome of health, and that's not exactly trackable. Do you or anybody have any advice on how to make it more transparent?
Kim, I've got something to share.
Because that was not my question.
Oh, okay.
I was like, wow, that came out of left field, right?
Good one.
The moderator has failed.
Okay, if you notice, I tried to save everyone. I'm like, that was me. So related to this, one of the ways to do this, at least in our organization, is most companies have a board or somebody with oversight, and if they delegate responsibility to a committee that is making all the benefit decisions for the workforce, having your CFO who's engaged on the plan as you're looking at options for providers, or as you're thinking about plan design, or they're seeing the costs that are coming in and where the costs are. That's one of the ways for them to get this. What we were sharing earlier was around cost avoidance. Yeah. So I was saying my 3 highest cost drugs in my healthcare plan are around rheumatoid arthritis, right, age, cancer, and then the third one is Ozempic. And we were commenting we're letting the doctors make the choice. We have an open formulary, and we don't currently, although there could be cost savings, we don't currently restrict a lot when it comes to healthcare. Ozempic has to be diabetic, not just for weight loss, but we're letting the science drive what should happen. And we were having the discussion, Carl and I, of organizations like ours are waiting to see, maybe it's better if someone at least gets healthier, loses weight, doesn't have all the other comorbidities that come with being obese, but how do you show that ROI on, we didn't have these higher healthcare claims because we made this investment today, and we were saying that would be difficult. And I'm sure that's exactly what Kim was going to share in just a second.
Yeah.
Except I think our top 3 are a little different. We talked about MSK, and cancer, and Ozempic. So similar, 2 out of the 3 at our company.
But Kim, something you did mention was handling the whole fairness issue with diversity, equity, and inclusion theme to it.
Yeah, I think it's really important at our company, and I think as we've spoken to at all of our companies, that it's just important for our employees to know and be able to trust that we have their best interest at heart, and that what's important for them to feel like they have secure, safe, and healthy lifestyles while they're with our companies is extremely important. And so that requires a lot of open dialogue between employees and us. There's education and awareness both ways, right? A lot of times our employees come to us and say, hey, I'd like a benefit for this particular area. And sometimes we already have that. They just didn't even realize that we had it. So it's education around that. And then it's education for us too, when we find out this is something that we should be paying attention to. Either A, we're already looking at it and we need some more research, or B, we've looked at it and we've determined based on the cost and what we believe perceived utilization of that particular benefit will be, that we can't move ahead right now, but it doesn't mean that we won't in the future. So it's really looking at all of our employees and trying to determine what's best for each person as best as we can to make sure that they feel like they have the benefits at our company that can support them. And if we can't, to really have a transparent conversation about why. Because at the end of the day, we want everyone to feel like they are getting the benefits that they need at our company to support them best at work and in life.
And what I hear you saying is if you get all these pieces in place, you can measure productivity. You can measure
Retention.
Retention is
that word, yeah. John, how would what you do tie into productivity?
Oh. So I was asked to be a contrarian on this panel.
Yeah,
So
I've called on him last for
I
a
will
reason.
start now. So there's a couple of things I would highlight. One of them is that fair doesn't mean equal. And I think that being able to dichotomize between everyone gets the same benefits plan and the utility of that benefits plan to everyone those are not the same thing. I did a bit of research before coming on here. 49% of the American population is covered by private insurance, 22 Medicaid, 20 Medicare, 7 to 9% uninsured. So as we think about this narrow description of what benefits looks like, we're really only talking about half of the American population, right? The other thing that I think about is the use case for these benefits. So if I fall into the 50% that qualifies for Medicaid or Medicare, this conversation becomes kind of moot because I'm not a participant in it. And the other thing that I think about when I'm thinking about benefits, both for our firm but also for across the clients that we work with, is the idea of benefits and looking at it through a very traditionalist view that benefits strictly is medical, short-term, long-term disability, vision, but really starting to go and expand off of that. And so things that I think are really important, that I think are really exciting, that I don't know if I think we're starting to go and scratch the surface on. Amazon CDL program, like you stay with your organization. One of the benefits that they offer is that you can get your CDL license. It allows you to be able to earn a ton more money as a truck driver than a warehouse worker. Investments into education, investments into emergency funds. And again, I think that we now are at this juncture point where what our employees need, and especially frontline employees, expands outside of the scope of traditional benefits. And I think really understanding that and understanding how we go and create value for them from a customer focus first is where we can really start to think about augmenting that value proposition. And practically speaking, dollars are fungible. So whether or not we spend it on EAP programs or we spend it on vision care, or we spend it on education programs and we spend it on licensing or micro training, or I think it's a real opportunity for us to take a look back and challenge some of those underpinnings of a program that is ripe to be reevaluated.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if you get all of these things right, you get a more what employee?
I think that you cater...
One word. What?
Productive.
Better, good.
Better.
I don't know. Happier?
Okay, I'll take happier.
Sure.
Yeah,
productive.
you know, because we're really looking at the impact to the bottom line. Don't make me put on the hat.
Right.
Anybody else want to add to that?
No, I think just with all the different generations, you have to have choice, right? I mean, you have to meet the associate where they're at. So, I mean, if you're dealing with an early career person trying to build a family, are you looking at family forming benefits? And so sometimes people push back on some of our programs that we don't have high utilization, but I say we have appropriate utilization because we're not trying to fit a one size fits all. So I think that's just really important. So at TransUnion, we really try to push variety. We try to meet where the associates are at. We are constantly pressure checking to make sure that they're adding value. So we will do surveys and make sure that they're utilizing it and that they felt like they got the result that they needed in the moment that they needed it. And that's, I think, really important. So sometimes it's about the value versus necessarily the hard dollars of, ROI.
I think a challenge that I hear across both of these is, like, one is, all right, let's think about benefits as a broader bucket of things that we do for our employees. And then the other is, and let's also add choice for all of these. So if you think from an employee's perspective, 20, 25 years ago, it was like, okay, well, here's my PPO that I'm going to get in, and that's it. Everything else, I can make a decision outside work. And suddenly we've got 200-page employee handbooks trying to figure out what you've got to offer. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges right now as an employee, which is you may have really great benefits, but in the middle of the year when you have some sort of devastating back pain, you're not going to remember that at the beginning of the year, on page 12, there was something about Hinge Healthcare. It's like, how do you get all of this complexity and get it to the right person at the right time?
AI, baby.
Listen, I totally agree. Like, we will go into benefits renewal in a couple of months, and I don't understand what's in it.
Well, yeah, no, I get it. And we have two vendors here. Are you using AI to support them?
Yes, and I will say this thing, because you hear about AI with vendors a lot, and at the end of the day, often what you get is like a wrapper around ChatGPT, and you're getting sold like, here's a chat bot where you can load a bunch of information in. And really what that's doing is just meaning someone gets to have a conversation with ChatGPT, maybe with like a handbook or documents loaded into it. What's often the missing piece, and like this is why I started the company I did, is that when you think about having a conversation with ChatGPT, it's only as smart as the data it has. And if it doesn't know what your claims experience is, if it doesn't know what dependents you have, if it doesn't know information about you as an individual, then it's just like you're having a conversation with a really smart person that knows nothing about you. Mm-hmm. So this is where you need to marry the two things together. But this is also where we're at this really interesting time where like there's been a bunch of regulatory change to provide better access to that data. But we still have this pushback where, as an employer, you're going like, oh, do I feel comfortable with providing, an outside vendor all this data on my employees? Like, how do I get over that hump to make this actually really useful?
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's seen any AI presentations from Microsoft. So we launched Copilot, and you can create these agents within so we're all HR professionals more or less here, and you can create these co-pilots, and it's freaking amazing. So if you don't know about it, YouTube all day long. There's videos on it, so you can quickly educate yourself. But definitely don't be late to the party, because it's going to just totally change the way that we work in HR and making efficiencies, but letting the associates know when they need it, like, hey, my lower back hurts. Well, look at this. We have Hinge Health. So yes, the data is critical, and we leverage our vendors for that. We make sure that there's cross-harmonization between our vendors. So if someone's going on a disability for, let's say, a back injury, they also know that a lot of times you have mental health issues. So then they also know to make sure that they're connecting them with my EAP program. So we're definitely making sure that all the different programs are being highlighted in the time that they need it. But AI, I think, is going to be instrumental.
Sherry, before COVID versus after COVID, how heavy was your EAP utilization?
So it was your traditional EAP before COVID, so it was 3 or 4%. We did transition to a global EAP, and we are almost at 40% utilization. Yes, we are launching. We have it integrated in our throughout our culture, and every Mental Health Awareness Month, right? We have had our senior leadership present in a panel, and they've talked about their own experiences to have that transparency and candidness. And so people just shared their stories, right? I have a sister who had bipolar, so I shared what that felt like and looked like. And so it opened the door for people, especially being in HR, that I have lived with someone with mental health, so they felt a little bit more comfortable perhaps coming to me and talking to me more candidly about their own situations. And we're about to launch mental health first aid awareness at all levels, and we're gonna make it part of our manager training. That what does it look like when your associate's struggling? How do you have those difficult conversations? You know, what to say, what not to say, and then when do you escalate it, right? And then how do you get them the help that they need when they need it? Those things are critical.
Yes, and a quick takeaway for everybody. First off, Sherry just shared how she kept the leadership who might be suspicious in all the conversations early on so that they understood the validity of the data. Did I summarize that okay?
Correct.
And then secondarily, many of our employees don't know that it's the right thing to do to watch out for each other. And if they see a friend of theirs struggling, they are legally okay pulling their friend into privacy and saying, is there anything I should know? And starting a conversation about mental health.
Right, and how do you help them, right? So we have flexible time off, so we provide the time and resources when they need it. And like I said, the leave disability piece is also a component that I think is really valuable at TransUnion.
Can I ask, 40% utilization of EAP, like that's a monstrous number in my view.
Utilization, registering, tapping into it one way or another. It's like getting the information. It's the amount of people that are using all 6 sessions. We're going to probably increase it. We also have coaching. So it's a whole array of offerings that they provide that we have associates using.
And George, knowing we were going to talk about it, I talked to a friend of mine who is a CEO of one of the top 10 EAPs, and I challenged him on the number, and he said, "Oh no, that's it. I mean, we're 40 to 50% utilization, and we're having to staff up hugely because of the demand."
I guess my question or my follow-on to it is, when you see numbers like that, as you dig further into it, like, are there structural issues that you look back and you say, you know, based on how many people are engaging for this reason, there are other things that we need to be thinking about doing? Like, what's an optimal number to
right, we're looking at why they're using it, and so then we're trying to create programs and figuring out how we can like support them and educate them and talk about burnout and resilience. And you know, you have to own it. Like, we can't like do everything for you, but we can help you with these tools and resources. So I mean, we're trying to like bring them to water so that they can like drink and, you know, do the recovery that they need.
Well,
unique to every person.
Just observing as an HR professional, the resilient, adaptable employee is one who has the financial reserves to not be terrified about missing a paycheck. And that's where you come in. Mm-hmm. You know, that if you want a resilient workforce, teach them financial. Also, maybe teach them critical thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
But I think also that COVID, I think, Sherry, you hit on it too. There was a certain level of vulnerability that I think the organization, at least my organization, had, that I don't think we would have been easily sharing before. When you have leaders then on a stage talking about, we were all impacted by someone who had COVID, for example, or I have someone who now is suffering mentally because we weren't always having those open conversations before. So I think post-COVID, yes, EAP has increased, and now it's okay. We're all talking about that with one another. And so now people are talking more about mental health than we ever did before. Not that it wasn't there, it's just that there's been some liberation and freedom to do that without judgment, which I think is really
Sherry,
important.
you've got centers of excellence globally.
We're trying to implement centers of excellence in the U.S. and then from there, I'm hoping to see like what countries or opportunities I have, because cancer is just one of those driving costs for all of my locations. It's not just a U.S. problem; it's a global problem. So we're trying to solve for that. So in the U.S., we're going to launch centers of excellence for 4 categories. So,
And one of those categories is mental health.
No.
Okay. That's 2 that the moderator got wrong.
So I wanted to pick up on EAP. And maybe I am alone in my thinking on this, but one of the things I worry about when it comes to benefits and the election of what we pick as part of deploying our scarce resources into benefits is that we look at benefits through a singular lens, which is our own. And so what ends up happening is that we cater to middle to senior managers across the organization, and we forget about our frontline employees. And just so I can understand the audience, show of hands, who has an hourly population that they support? Welcome.
Everybody.
And so, one of the things that I think about is there an element of tone deafness around some of the programs that we put together? Because, one of the things that's growing, 30% of the US population engages in the gig economy. That is expected to grow to about 50%. I think about some of the retailers that we work with, there is intentionality of keeping hours below 30 hours to avoid a situation of having to go and pay benefits. And so what ends up happening is that we end up ignoring probably the most important people in our organizations that are by program not allowed to participate, right? And so again, coming back to the thesis of, how, if we were to go and reimagine what benefits look like in an equitable way that creates value for all of our employees, not just full-time employees, not just mid-level employees, not just senior employees, suddenly the nature of output that you get might look quite different. Things that I think about, we could do mental health, and I know that that's one of the topics that we struggle with as well, but financial planning. Our average age in our organization is 34 years old, and the number of terrible financial decisions that are being made on a daily basis is wild, right? And so when I think about hey, you know what, and maybe you get coaching and you get counseling, but you also have to go and get everyone has to go and I don't know, talk to a financial planner, right?
A budget.
A budget, or even utilization of 401ks. If you're not at 100% utilization, people obviously don't understand how the program works, right? And so those are the things where when I think about creating yield on those dollars, is there an uncovered space? And I look at it through the lens of financial wellness, but I would say education, that we end up ignoring because of the fact that we're so tunnel vision into traditional views of what benefits look like.
No, my broker is abundantly clear that financial wellness is the number one priority for associates right now. That is their struggle. They need to learn how to budget. They need to know how to spend their money. Americans tend to live large and outside of their means. And how do we stop trying to match your neighbor and everything, the new boat and stuff, right? So I think there's a huge opportunity there for sure. And we're all HR. We all know that a lot of people are not saving enough for retirement. So we're gonna have a huge crisis on our hands.
You first, Michele.
Well, I was just going to build on the point that both John and Sherry are speaking about, which is there's an emergent role in HR that for so long in my career, we've worked very hard not to be paternalistic and not tell people and to just have kind of this broad brush offering. And really what you hear is the level of personalization that our employees need. They've got differing expectations, particularly the workers that we're finding that are coming in. I don't want to stereotype about generations, but the newer generations that are coming in have very different needs. And so the role that we as HR need to play with our leaders, with the partners that we select, and keeping in front of this offers a tremendous opportunity for us to really create value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was going to say, thanks, Michele. This is kind of old school and grassroots, but it still works, right? And I think within our benefits space, we try to proactively, once a quarter, do big seminars. And they're voluntary, you don't have to go. But of the 4 times that we do it, we always do one on pension, we always do one on 401k, because you only are interested in that when you're interested in that. Mm-hmm. And then the other 2 are really around the feedback that we get from our employees, and be that from those seminars that they're sitting in and saying, hey, can you give us more information about this or that? Our engagement surveys, we always try to embed some questions in there about benefits so that we have that open dialogue all the time and we're listening. I think that's the key, right? We have to listen and then be open to that education that goes both ways. So very basic, but those forums that create those conversations about what do employees need, are we meeting those needs? If not, why not? And really, when we go to benefits committee every year, reevaluating our offering in totality, but also line by line, Where are we falling compared to our benchmarked peers in the industry? Are we rich in these areas, less rich in these areas, and do we need to adjust based on what we're hearing directly from our employees? So basics, but still so important to do.
Let's talk about the future. If you could change something going forward, with the power vested in you by this cell phone, what would you change about how we deliver employee benefits? And I picked up some things about individuality and selections. Does this mean we're going back to cafeteria plans? I'm old enough to remember those. What's going to be different in the future? The audience is hungry for your view of the future.
I don't think it's going to be fixed to like an annual, like we're going through our planning cycle, here's what we've got. I think it's got to be more than just choice, but like an employee at a given time has a particular need, and how do you meet that need at that point in time, regardless of what you're offering? Because I think we've become, it's hard not to be restricted when there are thousands of different offerings and benefits out there, and each year you're trying to pick, what are the 2 or 3 that I'm going to fight for this year, when inevitably you're going to leave out a sliver of the population. So
That's a really interesting point, because we have been having to choose from a million zillion things. I mean, I was recently in a grocery store and there were 50 feet of laundry soap. It's all the same. People get overwhelmed with all of these choices. So you had mentioned AI. Here's a challenge. With AI, that means people are letting the system do the thinking.
No, I think
Am I wrong?
they're letting AI give them relevant recommendations. So if you've got 20 benefits to choose between, like maybe you can understand that, or the advent year is you could have 1,000 to choose between, but you don't need to read about all 1,000 of them. You're just getting like, hey, these 2 things look like they might make sense for you at this point in time. Here's the reason why. Then you can evaluate it, and you don't run into this like analysis paralysis of, there's just so much, I can't effectively evaluate it.
No, because you can actually drop documents into like Copilot, for example, and it will give you an executive summary. It will do a comparison. So I can say I have 4 medical plans. Here is my medical and RX data. Drop it in there and then say which plan is a good fit for me, and it would be able to tell you. So
one future thing is going to be more decision assistance. Is that what I'm hearing?
yes, and choice.
Okay. Are there any benefits we aren't offering currently that we will be offering in the future? I mean, until COVID, I wouldn't have expected pet insurance to be so big.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's a thing for me.
Anything out there that
Well, I do think the financial wellness is going to be huge. I do think that there's a global opportunity there to figure out a solution, because I think we're all just kind of tapping into our record keepers or 401k providers or whatever to provide those services, which isn't necessarily bad. But if you want to have like a financial global strategy or something, I think there's opportunities to lean in on some of the vendors that are out there that can help with the consistency, but also be able to localize it to the particular country in which you're working on.
Okay.
I think the one thing that is front of mind for me, it's actually 2 things. The first one is around demographic shifts. So we're going to have people who are healthier longer, staying in the workforce longer, and continuing to work. And so I think that making sure that, I think that the spread of what work looks like and the duration of what work looks like is going to become much longer. And we're going to have 5 generations for a long time. And the second thing is that I don't know the answer to this, but the continuing shift in favor of part-time and gig. And so I think there's this, we will always have these roles that are full-time, but I think especially with AI and a myriad of other economic changes, we will see a large shift in favor of part-time, and we will see a large shift in favor of gig. And so I think as we think about the composition of what our organizations look like, benefits will need to include creating value for that portion of the population. And I was hoping to have like a good solution for it. I just don't.
Portability.
Okay, sure.
Portability. Like right now, we rely on the benefits your employer gives you. You move to the next employer. and it's starting from square one.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of regulatory stuff happening here. I mean, I was an early employee at Oscar Health, which sells individual plans. There's been a regulation around CHRO, which is now going to be called Choice, where you can give pre-tax dollars to your employees. The environment doesn't support it at scale yet, but that's something that I'm watching where, in 5-10 years, we may be in a situation where we have a lot more of that, where people are being given pre-tax dollars towards benefits that they can carry over to a next employer or a next, a gig economy gig.
Yeah, I mean, HSAs. One of the things I think about is the idea, and maybe it doesn't go as far back as cafeteria, but like the nature of when the formation of traditional benefits came into play. Defined benefit pensions programs, long-term, benefits programs are designed for long-term tenure. 3.6 years is the average tenure of like an American worker, and it probably is not going up. And so again, just recognizing the evolutionary pressures that are on the system right now, and then really starting to think through how we think around those corners, versus just trying to retool something that was probably designed for a model that has materially changed.
Yeah. I think designed is a charitable word.
Sure.
And I would say I'm living what John is speaking about. The demographics of our workforce, we have almost 40% of our global workforce that is age 60 plus, based on our generational analysis. And so this whole thing, and we've been trying to look around the corner and plan for part-time work for the people that potentially want to stay in the workforce because of that 40%. If you slice it further, our number of people that are age 64 or 65 or greater is 40% of that total population. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of people that are wanting to continue working, but we don't have the groundswell enough yet to be able to really create and support. So everything we've talked about on part-time work is absolutely true. For our organization, our part-time employees, if you're less than 30 hours a week, we don't have very many of them, so we don't offer those benefits. And I'd say in our company, we only have a handful of people. But as I have more tenured workforce and I don't want to lose my knowledge, we in HR are trying to be ready for it, but the groundswell isn't going to hit. I'm sure I'm going to get slammed in probably 18 months where everybody's going to want part-time work and we'll scramble, but we've been trying to look out for exactly the trend you're talking about.
Okay, CFO here. I don't want people who are portable. I want to keep mine trained and happy and here, and part-time work scares me because if the benefits are portable, I don't have a handcuff on them. I'm actually going to have to do a better job of managing them to make them want to stay, instead of they have to stay because of benefits. I'm playing that role. I'm sorry. I work with CFOs a lot, so.
That sounds like a great CFO. I think a lot of CFOs. I think a lot of CFOs might take the other view on it, which is like, oh, a very portable workforce that I can shift in and shift out as the wind blows. That sounds great.
I was going to do rock, paper, scissors, shoot on who wanted to go and take that one.
If you've got a great training department and if it's tasks that can be quickly picked up, if it's something that really has wisdom that you want to keep, then that's a different ballgame.
Yeah, so I personally don't think introducing more portable benefits is going to make your employees want to leave faster. I think it will mean that if and when they do decide to leave, it's easier for them. But to me, the things that, if those portable benefits you've offered are good and you're paying a good amount towards them and the rest of your workplace is somewhere that people want to be and enjoy being, then you can retain those employees.
Okay.
So I think that CFO doesn't have to worry about that particular aspect.
I'm liking it. Okay, we're down to a speed round moment where everybody can make either a prediction or a statement from what they would like to get across today of what's the most important thing in benefits going forward. And John, you're still thinking, anybody got something?
I was just going to say, I think we just need to continue to listen to our employee population and marry that with our culture and not be tone deaf. Right? The world is evolving, our companies are evolving, how we do work evolves, and different people need different things to help support their journey to feel healthy, safe, and secure. So we just can't be tone deaf, and we need to continue to listen and execute in partnership with the CFO.
Wow, I think that's an applause moment.
Right?
That's really good.
And then just for me, I would obviously yes. And then getting the tools and resources and leveraging the AI, because you're not going to escape it, and try to ensure that all the great benefits and things that you're offering, the associate can tap into pretty easily. And I think the AI is going to bring that tool sooner than later.
So,
I'll just stress the importance of data. I think you've heard throughout the presentation that we're making these decisions based on the information about our specific workforce. And yes, we look at benchmarking, but at the same time, we make decisions based on what the needs for our business and for growth are. So we're not solely tied to, well, the market says this. We're okay with investing forward to differentiate ourselves.
And it's the marrying
you
of the
heard the
data
same
too, right? It's the medical data, it's the pharmacy data, it's your leave data, like why are people going out? It's your mental health data, and it's bringing it all together, telling the story.
Correct, and the talent.
Right.
The workforce to be able to understand.
Yeah, connected to this, I would say there has been so much that has been changing from a regulatory perspective around access to data, from a technological perspective around AI, and so many different solutions. Like this entire space is being disrupted underneath us. So at this point, if you're not already getting up to speed on what is out there and what is happening and thinking about how to implement it in your org, then like you're not even just not an early adopter, you're actually behind the people that are going to be in the midstream.
Got anything, John?
Yeah. So I have no idea what's going to happen next year or the year after that, or potentially even in 5. But I would say keep your eye on the economic ebbs and flows that are taking place. There's low certainty on what's going to happen next year, but again, the tide is coming in. Ditto with regards to demographic forces. People aren't getting younger. Apparently, we're also not having very many more children. So I think, again, using that as the backdrop and making informed guesses that project out 5 to 7 to 10 years and starting to game plan that, I think is probably good advice.
Now is when you clap. Michele Miller, Senior Vice President, CHRO of Ideal Industries. Kim Nero, EVP and Chief Human Resources Officer at GATX. Sherry Nelson, Senior Director, Benefits and Wellbeing of TransUnion. John Lowe. They're out of order here.
Sorry.
Chief People Officer, Daily Pay. And last but not least, George Sperling, CEO of Budgie Health. Thank you so much for your time.